just want to tell you what I know. And why I know this story is kind of unique. I'm going to talk about the relationships I've had throughout life and the interactions I've had while trying to survive the last 504 days. But I just want you to know these key facts. First, one is only unsinkable as long as he believes in the beauty of his dreams. I have a job interview on Friday in 3 days. Right now, I am very much in need of basic supplies, food. If you can donate, please do. Thank you. My hometown is Mount Airy, North Carolina, Mayberry. America's #1 TV hometown, still #1 because Ada Griffith takes her cares away at the end of the day. It's good values. We need to kind of like reincarnate those in a new TV show, call it Blue Ridge Hills 27030 or something. I'm also from the poorest county in the United States of America. Elaine McMillan Sheldon is a documentary maker who stayed with my dad before he made me homeless. She stayed there for free. She's an affluent person, about my age. She's LGBT friendly. She ought to be able to be by my side a little more. She can't. Not yet. I'm a first generation college graduate, and I have 2 uncles, eldest ones on each side of my family, mom and dad, that were firstborns as well and homeless. Okay. It is just an extreme being from those places, having, been career successful enough to be awarded at WVU, #1 in the country in my first postgraduate position, an intern for 40 hours a week for 10 months, earning a promotion 1 year, 1 day, come out to Dish, world headquarters, weeks before COVID and never getting trained. All of this to somebody out there, probably at the New York Times, maybe after I die. This is going to, I think, be a very interesting, unique perspective. And you also look at parents divorced at 10 years old, the maximum worst age, the time it takes the biggest toll on a child was the time that they decided to get divorced when I was that age. My relationship is journey with faith leaders and people that are supposed to be strong in the community, that whole angle. Okay, so I get asked this a lot. Here's how it all starts. Basically, it kind of starts on January 6, 2021, the day of the United States Capitol insurrection. My father decides to go. I decide to quit working for him. My father sells art. I helped him sell it online, and that was just the last straw for me. I didn't like the disrespect, basically. So I'm working at a pizza restaurant in the summer of 2022. It's part-time. I love the work, but I need more hours at another job nearby. So I apply at the very nearby Kroger or King Soopers grocery store. There's a position overnight available to stock cans. It seems like a win-win. I've already worked for Kroger. In the red hot hiring summer months of summer 22, it actually takes King Soopers 11 weeks for the time I start applying to the time I'm actually doing my training and starting my first day. This creates a cash flow issue, and I do everything you can imagine to supplement any income. I had some people come stay with me to try out a roommate situation. I was working with a Colorado rental assistance program. That becomes a technical glitch with the leasing office. It was kind of like a nightmare, never ending early in the summer and just propelling because it took so long to work at King Soopers. The reason for that was people with jobs at King Soopers already, the HR staff, supervisors, etc., were taking summer vacations. That was kind of the holdup. Here's the situation. After so long of starting Kroger, it just kind of comes out, I won't make enough cash. I'm behind on the rent. I had been laid off in the spring. I'm leaving out some minor details, but on January 6th, I kind of basically knew with my father doing that and the whole faith of the entire family kind of like not seeing it being a big deal, I just had a very sinking feeling, thinking I'm going to try and fight and work as much as I can, but I'm probably going to lose my apartment. Here's my apartment. Here's the closet, and here's the rest of it. It's a basic studio built in the 1980s in South Denver. The rent was $1,200 a month. For Denver, that's not unusual. It was a very modest place. There's much more expensive places. I moved in here in November 2019. By September 2022, I have called a friend in North Carolina, someone I was friends with for 6 years, and he says, hey, why don't you just come back to High Point, North Carolina, close to where I used to live. I knew the friend. He said, I'll have a job waiting on you when you get here. You can stay with me. Seems like a very simple solution. What I want to say about arriving to this apartment right around Thanksgiving 2019 and having almost the entire time there during the pandemic, it felt like I worked myself a lot harder for a promotion that never really came into effect because I never really got to, well, get trained, explore Dish World headquarters, see opportunities there, really beyond working from home. And then I was at home a lot because of COVID. And I felt like with that and January 6th, stopping work with my dad, it just felt like I never really got to explore Denver the way I thought I was working for the year before. So it was always like, I'll miss the apartment. I miss the solace and the ability to have a place. Absolutely. But I also remember feeling like I was trapped there. Now I would love to be trapped back in my apartment sometimes. One significant thing in my life, and kind of paralleling, I've noticed with my father in the early 90s when he almost decided to quit painting and then decided, he says, to paint things that matter. I kind of felt an outlet for marketing and branding, personal branding, and I just kind of went into overdrive and I decided, my dad went to January 6th. I'm going to reevaluate everything. So I turned 34 that 2021 in April. I just call myself remastered. When I turned 35, call myself refined. And this year I'm 36. I call myself Southern Prince just to kind of give me a little bit of fairy tale, fantasy, glamour, a little bit of something in my spirit to just kind of bounce. And next year, if I live to be 37, I'm going to be rock solid. So it just kind of have themes. It helps me a lot. I really enjoyed that whole process at the apartment. One other piece of information or way I try to save my apartment and avoid having to relocate from Denver is I actually tried to sell some art that my father had given me. We had already at this point had January 6th over for 6 months, and I contacted some of his top clients. They declined to buy the art, so I take it to the Colorado train station and I leave a note there, and that's that. It's only like the very next day, and there I am at Union Station, feeling good, feeling positive, and only feeling more so when I see an emblem on the Greyhound of a symbol from my hometown, Mount Airy. It has Pilot Mountain nearby, and I just kind of feel like this is a good omen. I'm doing the right thing. I'm not really stressed. And I get to the Atlanta Greyhound station, and that's when things start to change. Where this story really begins as a homeless story, this is the first picture of me at the Atlanta Greyhound station, the first picture of me homeless. I last heard from my friend in High Point around the Chattanooga stop. I actually never hear from him again. I don't know the reason why I was ghosted on. I know that he had a stroke in the past. We'll never know. I just know that I've got to figure out somewhere to survive besides the Atlanta Greyhound station. I'm there for a while, over a day, before I find somebody. I'm scrambling to find someone I know kind of on this bus itinerary. Where can I go since I'm not hearing from my friend anymore? It's very terrifying. The Atlanta Greyhound station is where hell starts. It's awful. It's a million years old. And my friend Harold that I met in 2018 on a supply run for my dad says, just come on, I'll take you to my place in Wilkesboro. So I'm transported there, and right just in a matter of days from big old metropolitan Denver, it's a real rush of emotions and a journey just kind of reliving the experience, putting this video together. But in just a matter of days, I'm no longer going to High Point where I thought I was and feeling good about that, seeing my friend I hadn't seen in a while. I'm seeing Harold, who I saw on a supply run once. Don't know him that well, but I'm definitely way back in the country. This is the home place of Senator Robert C. Byrd, and where my father and artist Ward Nichols have kind of started their art careers. It is a place that is different than High Point, not where I was expecting to go. And I've been homeless before. I already kind of know it's like a figure it out as you get there kind of game. And I don't know what I'll be doing next, but this is how it starts. And here's the rest of probably everything you need to know or want to know how things have been since then. As you can kind of gather from these pictures, on the outside, I'm kind of having a hillbilly's paradise, and I have been cooped up in that Denver apartment for COVID for like forever. On the inside, mostly, I'm kind of freaking out, kind of going, all right, so how do I get my bearings from here? This was unexpected. Whatever happened to my friend, what am I going to really do now? I call my brother, Andrew, who's in Charlotte, and I say, why don't we get everybody together and just go to Hawaii? Like, my mom had moved back from Switzerland, and I felt like, I need a home and we need to see each other. She's probably got the money now. I mean, for some reason to me, it just feels like it could work. I hadn't seen her. It just kind of felt like, well, since we can't think of what to do, or I can't, maybe she'll want to go on vacation. She sure went on a lot of those before. My brother is kind of supportive of this idea at first, and then he isn't. And I'm just going to go into the rest of the video I prepared. This is kind of, though, how it all started. The only other piece of information you should know: there isn't much to do at Harold's. I have lived in North Carolina for 25 years and then West Virginia for the next 8. I do know where I'm at, but I'm kind of like supplanted in my dad's universe. Although we're not talking because of January 6th, and I already knew when I couldn't hear from my friend in Chattanooga that my family was not going to be at all coming to my aid. I mean, I was in touch with my brother, but he was just kind of like, what do you want me to do about it? I was like, how about Hawaii? He was like, that sounds like a plan, but he was supportive, but not like going to do anything. And there wasn't much to do except kind of stay out of the way of Harold's other house guests, I guess. They were men finding their way. One of them was particularly, I would say, aggressive. He just didn't seem to like there being another person there. So one night I actually am fleeing to no fault of my own. He just didn't want someone there. Harold's an older Vietnam vet, and that man was a psycho. He chased me with nunchucks, and I've been surviving ever since. Basically, my plan after surviving that night was to get to Elon University, where I graduated. I felt it was the only home I had left. Here's the rest of the story. Going back to my university, where I actually was receiving help in the right ways, I feel, at the Student Health Center's doctor saw me on the Good Samaritans Act and said, she said, it's all for your homeless. We want to help you. We don't know what this is unusual, but we're going to see you came to the right place. Those words were said. She was working on it. I was outside on the grass nearby, waiting up for a certain time. University administrations came in with the chief of campus police and 2 sheriff's deputies or other people. And they said, because your father went to January 6th, and that is the only reason, we're kicking you off campus. We're taking you back to the train station right now. They did take me to 2 homeless shelters, and that interaction was, they were full, and then I was unable. I was thrown perilously back into a life or death situation, being homeless without any resources, going to Elon because it was the only home I had left, being all of those things, successful, and from pretty much quintessentially the dynamite place you want to be from, down there in North Carolina, a small town, and then being from the poorest place, the most poverty-stricken place, climbing out of that multiple times, being homeless a second time, and for over 500 days. It's a lot. And, like just having a job and not being homeless anymore, this has tremendously affected who I am. And it made me find a lot of peace. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the relationships and how they've changed and the interesting interactions I've noticed, because I speak a lot of different languages and I'm in a lot of different worlds all the time. Not everybody knows I'm homeless in the real world. And I just wanted to share with you what it's like to be me, in a way, really. Can you tell that I'm homeless for 504 days? I want to talk to you about what I've observed in the relationships I have with people from all over my life and how interesting that is. People forget, I know I'm kind of a disruptor. It's like I'm fighting for my life. I'm not asking for like someone to put a good word in for me for promotion. I'm asking and trying to find a solution so that I actually do not die of chronic homelessness. And the way I want to talk a little bit about the interactions with people, some before I even went homeless, and I want to tell you some very clear observations I've made. I'm choosing to do this video here at Union Station early in the morning, and right over there's waffles and dinges. This is almost about as close as I can get, really, to the former most important place in the world, the man of my dreams place, which is not too far, but I ain't going over there. I haven't really been over there at all since we had closure. So I want to try to get into it, make this very illuminating, because this is a very unique spot to be in, and I've always known that. I knew that the day I became homeless again. I knew this the day I became homeless in 2016. And I think this would be an interesting perspective. I'm gonna start to stop. I don't even have a pen right now. Would I like to take notes? I'm gonna start to stop, do little clips, and break this into sections. It's going to be impossible to say everything I want to in this video, but I do need to prelude in saying I am carrying everything I own at 504 days homeless, wherever I need to go to be safe and clean and warm night to night. It is still going into that level of disparity. And when you're at a 7-Eleven and they ask to put your backpack up, you're having to understand your social security card, birth certificate, and driver's license may be stolen if you comply with that. So you're not able, if you've not been homeless, to really understand the magnitude of how quickly things can change and how much you must survive all of the time. By and large, what I can tell you in a nutshell is that your response to me, how willing you're able to help. I am aware that you are probably just not aware of how dire the situation is. This is me just a few days ago, moving all of my belongings in less than 30 degrees, and I'm carrying a plastic tote, 2 backpacks, and a duffel bag to one place, and I've already relocated multiple times since. I am trying to find, usually just to get back more of what I already had, somewhere safe that I can stay long enough to try to build a plan to move forward in terms of employment and just a little bit of regularity. Often that changes beyond my control. I am always trying to find a way to break the cycle of having to get up and relocate with absolutely no resources that I can put down for a hotel room or something. Let me try to explain it this way. I know that when you have a conversation with someone online, it may drop off and then you might pick back up a few days later and everyone's kind of at the same point. Never the case with me. This is how many miles I'd walked so far in January. And since this year started, this is how many miles I've walked, 73.6 miles, often in the coldest wet weather of the year and carrying everything I own. Today is Wednesday, January 24th. I have $2.66 available in SNAP that I can eat on until February 6th. If I go to a food bank, where am I carrying that along with everything else that I have? Do you see where I'm getting? This is why I'm trying to break the cycle, and I'm somehow actually surviving at 504 days like this. I know if I don't say this, nobody will never know for sure. It's something Chrissy taught me. I never wanted to be homeless. This is not how I want to be living my life. This is probably how it could end at any time. It is 16 times more likely to. I'm not comfortable with my father's behavior, and my mother is disappointing, but I really would like to be living my life like a normal 30-something, but I can't. What's going to come up, or if you just dismiss it all together pretty quickly, it really is just kind of a very, very on a basic level. How much do you have in common with me? Are you gay? Are you homeless? Those two things right there put a huge leap forward. Another big thing to take away would be if you are married, if you are in a solid relationship, never been homeless, not gay, you are likely to be extremely hard to persuade it is right to help me or to get you to believe that in a way. Please try really hard and remember I was working at a pizza restaurant and trying to work at a grocery store and never really wanted to leave Denver really bad. I was thrown into a situation beyond my control after I got ghosted on, and then I went to my university for help for that. They don't really see any of this as their problem. When I contacted Jeff and Katie Hendrick of the Triangle, North Carolina Alumni Association, they don't care. There's no response. The place that spent $166,000 to be educated doesn't have time for me or my life. Please try and understand that. They don't care. My mother doesn't care. My father doesn't care. My brother doesn't care. Nobody that's supposed to care does. If I live. Might actually lead to something positive that I can use to save my life. And I'm extremely harsh on divorced people. I am. Let's get into a few different families that I have interacted with or thought about or that are particularly important. First would be the Fry family. This is particularly important, and it's one of the reasons that they were the first, because a few reasons. One, they've known my family since before I was born. We actually shared the same house. They sold their house to my family, and I was born and I grew up in it. My brother was born, he grew up in it too, he doesn't remember. The Fries and my family have, they're like ground zero. We lived in the same house. They are almost in a position to where, almost barely, kind of in a weird way, consider them like an aunt and uncle to me. Todd Fry, I watched them coach soccer. They watched my parents get divorced. They have a son named Nathan who is about 3 years older than me. He went to Afghanistan, like the man of my dreams. I found out last night, it's quoted in the Mount Airy newspaper, Michelle Fry sent him cheerwine across the world. I get it, it was her son. I get he was at war. I don't blame her for that, but I'm just wanting to tell you, she also told me she would give me snowboats, but way more important than that, she never did. Way more important than that would be the fact that Todd Fry, it was the person I came to in February 2023. I found out my dad was sleeping with a 7-year-old boy, and I can't accept anything except an apology for him on why he failed to communicate with me. I hadn't talked to Todd in a very long time, but if I'm coming to Todd Fry with something that important, it should have continued to be a private issue, and I had trust that Todd would have been removed enough from my dad, but still cared enough, and also able. He is a Grand Mason, and he's in my hometown. And if you're in my hometown, Mount Airy, America's #1 TV hometown, home of the Andy Griffith Show, where those values were instilled in Andy Griffith, I expect more out of you than I do somebody from Kernersville, somebody from Boone County, West Virginia, somebody from Colorado Springs or Brighton, Littleton. You are supposed to be still #1. The show is what we all watch as an America as a whole to get through our troubled days. It's on so many channels late at night. That show, and advertisers know it. When I said a few weeks ago Mount Airy has fallen, this is kind of what I was referring to. And the fact that Todd Fry was not able to respond, he should have still been able to respond at all. He wasn't. The dialogue I've had with Michelle Fry really kicked up about the time that Chrissy White, the operations manager at Dish, the person who cleared me to go out to Denver for the first place in 2019, right before COVID, the one who said, if you needed a hotel room for a month, Nate, I can make it happen. She never did. She'd be false hope for a few days, and she dropped me. And it was just kind of like, I thought that would pull me out. If I had a hotel room for a month, I had a hotel room for 2 weeks, but a whole month probably would be enough for me to lift myself out of homelessness pretty quickly. It's just kind of like, I know enough about what I need, and what I have, it's often just enough to get through a few hours. The next plan, it's just constantly that hour-by-hour thing. You have to remember the homeless shelter is overcrowded and unsafe. I have seen rape there. I want to get more focused into other relationships with other families, but the Fry family and my family definitely should be more congruent, even given the fact that my parents were divorced for 27 years. My parents both know Michelle and Todd. I wonder what communication has happened between that. Michelle and Todd should know it's not right for me to be homeless. I know they love their son. It's very evident in the Mount Airy news articles, which are like blasted how contrasting they are about how much it is important to be home with family. And their response to me, Candace Fry, who was my age, so Nathan's about 3 years older, and I knew him growing up. I liked him a lot. He's heterosexual, married, I think, with kids. Haven't talked to him at all. Candace Fry, I tried to reach out to and try to help, ask her to persuade her mother to help do like a Mount Airy Christmas time fundraiser for me. She blocked me. I haven't been able to reach or find Justice Fry. He's younger than me and about my brother's age. I don't know him very well, and I wouldn't really anticipate a lot of movement with Justice. Just weak connection, and it's really Todd and Michelle that I remember the most, and that I know are adults and the boomers, and that should be people that I could be able to say, you're alive, you're still the best, You love your son, clearly. You should be able to help me out of this problem. They can't even give me snow boots. The only thing they've actually done, and I haven't heard from Michelle in a long time, they've been absent, she gave me a phone number to a church group in New Mexico called Life Changers. She said they were going to be in Denver. This is a few months back. I called them a couple times. They couldn't actually call me back. So whatever life-changing group they are, they should probably work on it. The next family I'm going to talk about is also my hometown, and they're right next door. This was the Bills. Was because Mr. Bill is no longer here, and Mrs. Bill, I believe, also passed. They were the people who saw me from birth to about 10 years old on a daily basis. They should have loved me, and they do. I know that they probably went to their grave loved me. Probably appalled that this ever happened. Probably never knew I was homeless in 2016 when my father made me that way. They were completely silent and non-participatory in my parents' divorce. So it was always kind of like, I don't know if they were even here, what they didn't respond at all to things I think they should have in 1997. They have a son. His name is Michael, and he is kind of in that class of age group with my Uncle John and my Uncle Angelo. Almost young enough to be my brother in a way, but they're maybe 7 to 10 years older than me. And Michael and I, we didn't really have much of a relationship, but he is a judge. He is someone that should also have an extreme, heavy amount of character and knowing what's right doesn't change, and just sort of like an overall, because my parents cared about you, like just like the Fries, he should be there. I haven't actually reached out to Michael. I haven't been able to find exactly how to contact him, and I don't know. We don't know each other that well, and his parents have passed. It's going back so long. I don't know. He's not gay. He's never been homeless. It would be not worth a whole lot of my time, I don't think, at this point. But I really would like to talk to him, because I just would. I'll tell you, the last interactions I had with Bills would have been about a year, maybe a year and a half apart from each other in the mid-2000s. My dad and I showed up there first, and then when my mom got remarried, we showed up again without my dad, And it was very interesting how, it was eerily similar, even though it was a, different cast. They performed the whole overall reception and tone, and it was interesting because we hadn't seen them in so long, and then we did all of a sudden within a pretty relatively recent period. That was interesting, and I never saw them again. They were older in life back when I began life, and they're no longer here. It's one of the sad things, because I think that Mr. Bell, I want to say, if you get to see me right now, sit right next to me, he would be like, "What is going on? I can't believe this. Why do you've been homeless for 5 and 4?" He would, I think, be like in the flesh. This will all go away like that. Next family will be mine. America's Best Family 5.0, the Pickuses. My stepfather currently, stepsister, stepbrother. My step-siblings are in 2 different continents, from what I understand. Completely different continents. One's in South America, one is in Europe. I have never heard from them, talked to them in my entire life. My stepfather probably should know that I'm homeless. Has done nothing about it. I have never heard from him. I have more interaction with America's Best Family 2.0. That would be Steve Trevette, my stepdad. I asked for his cell phone recently in a video on his birthday. Hey, gay. Never been homeless. One other big red flag here. If you know my dad, that automatically, before I even went homeless, before I even talked about my dad sleeping with a 7-year-old boy, before I even went homeless, if you knew my dad, you are not somebody that's likely to be supportive of me much at all in general. That would include his best friends like Jay Chapman, Markella. Let me tell you what Markella did. Markella actually blocked me when I was trying to get in somewhere without a coat for the night, and I was like, I'm standing outside here and I don't have a coat. That's how Markella That's how cold she was. Jay Chapman and I, there's not really a reason. I don't think that he cares if I'm alive. He just lives up Carswell Hollow. Ron Blevins, Patricia Blevins, know who my dad is. When I was committed after being homeless in 2016, he was the officer and his wife drove me to Huntington. I think they're good people, but I think that he was retiring as I was announcing my dad's lived in Seminole Voice. It's like he lost his great connection to law enforcement in McDowell County, was retiring just as I needed him. They've been better than most people, but they really just aren't able to do enough to save my life or the one of the Seminole Boys. It's just kind of like, I know they want to, but I just don't think that they think that they can. It's really sad. Rest of my family, real quickly, like, if you know my dad, closer you know my dad, the harder and more unlikely it is. Before I went homeless, number one, number two, our clients would not at all participate in really moving forward with the conversation of, hey, I'd like to unload some artwork so I do not go homeless. Can you buy this? Because you always bought everything from my dad before. The reason I'm selling this is so I don't go homeless. I need to make some cash to pay rent so I don't go homeless. And they declined it. My Uncle Dave, a multimillionaire, there's my dad on the other side of the family, but they go way back. Generally, they have an overall, from what I know, now, 27 years later, it is minute, but I think they would both answer the phone if one of the other one called. My dad was still supportive of David in 2023 in February when I was talking about my cousin Andy being not heard from in prison, and he was just like, well, that's tough love from David. I'm like, that has nothing to do. It's wrong. It's wrong. We should care about Andy. My dad was not able to. All his brothers and sisters. The only one that is alive that I feel would have a strong connection to, naturally, a fit that just feels like it picked up yesterday, Aunt Jenny. Aunt Jenny and I went down to North Carolina to see her son in prison, and Gary would be the only one on my dad's side that I feel like he did send me, I sent him before I went homeless some money, and then he sent something to homeless, some money, $35. He, overall, and I don't know each other that well. There's some hard times. He's in Florida. Wish him the best. He kind of had it through with my dad. Every other cousin, not at all supportive. Haven't heard anything from them. It is almost down to the weird family got divorced first. Second, Michael did too, but it's almost because Maddie didn't get divorced. She's got 2 kids. One's adopted. Her spouse she completed a marriage. If I said that too. If you I'll get to that in a minute. Just quickly talking about cousins of my duration on my dad's side. Josiah is my Aunt Donna's and Uncle Tim. They have, I think, the longest rating marriage of all the people I'm related to closely. Josiah is younger than me, has already been divorced, remarried. He did have my back for 5 minutes, or a very brief period, on January 6th. He did seem to be one of the only people the only person at all, besides my brother, who was at all, for any brief period of time, taking a stand to say, my dad going to January 6th was not right. I've not heard from him at all while being homeless, and I do not think I ever will. Neither for Samantha, neither for Joe. I've tried to be somewhat in touch with Joe's wife. I've never met her in person. That was just the thing about Samantha and Joe is their father, Samuel Fain. When we lost Samuel Fain, we lost a big part of the family because he just was. He was probably a leader of the family. Definitely probably through some of the divorce, I would say. He was the one. He was the one that tied divorce court, and then we went right to a piano recital.
Because she's a life ruiner. She ruins people's lives.
One from the other. Samuel Fain has a huge family that I believe is good, strong, should care. They do not know me. Most of the people in McDowell County that knew me don't know them. Most of them, it's just been a weird off and on train track kind of situation. I've never got to know The Fain family, although they are pretty well known in McDowell County, Maddie, if she cared, totally make it happen. She could actually probably say, we need to pull together. We need to get Nathan out of homelessness. I know it's not, y'all's is direct family, but like it's somebody that we should care about. She could do that, but Maddie's cares aren't what her dad's were when she got brand new vehicles. It's just, it's a boomer thing. Team Dave, Uncle Dave and I, we never got along that great. We never actually had too much to blow, really. Here's a relationship for me and Uncle Dave. Last time I knew Uncle Dave did the right thing would have been in 1997 when he told my mom, don't get divorced. She did, and he did see Steve. He came to that wedding. He came to my mom's other wedding, the last one. I think that he loves my mother, maybe. I don't know I don't know for sure. But let's just talk about Crystal. Crystal, last thing she ever said to me was, I hope you're well. She knows I'm homeless. It was right before I went homeless. She's been unable to say a thing. She was actually the one that reached out to me. And I think the family of them that have everything needed something from me when they invited me to talk to Andy, my favorite cousin who's incarcerated, still incarcerated, has been since almost the entire time I moved out here. Very worried about him. I don't hear from him very often. September, I think, was the last time. Very concerned about that. He could be a future leader of the family. Probably, I think, will be the one I'm still thinking should be the next leader of the family. Let's talk about his kids. Mark and Misty. Very little interaction. No direct interaction with Mark. Mark should know I'm homeless. Misty, I think I've tagged her 1 or 2 times. Misty, her family owns a restaurant in Putnam County. This is the biggest headquarters of the family's here, and it was since they sold Granny's house. And this is since the 60s, late 50s, been the fastest growing part of the family, my mom's side, in Putnam County. Misty's family is well-to-do, I believe, or doing well in that area, and Mark is has been married for about maybe 10 years. Zero, they're married, they're not gay, they've been homeless. What's right doesn't change. They're also extremely unlikely to go homeless. However, I think Brian, the second born, for a long time, Ben is 10, 11 years younger than me and Andy. So for a long time, Brian was the middle child. Brian, after Ben was born, became a crack addict. He stole video game stuff from Ben, if not Andy too, and then he found the Lord, found a wife, been living a clean, sober life. However, I think Dave is extremely, I think Brian knows he has very limited bandwidth. But Ryan, I think have always been allies. In general, we haven't been ever that close, but he's always been friendly with me. He put a strike on my car when I went down there once. Interaction with Brian really concerns Rebecca, his wife. I had interaction with her a few weeks ago. Basically what happened was she said, I'm sorry you're in so much suffering. It seems awful that you can't really pull yourself out. And then she blocked me, probably because David or Crystal, maybe Misty or Mark, somebody influenced her decision. Cut it out. There ain't nothing to gain by talking to Nate. That's really what I felt. And I was like, you are like always talking about being a Christian. She was an addict too. They've been in rehab a long time ago. Like, they have been a pretty solid, happy, doing well family. Nothing. Andy, incarcerated, gay, already was homeless. Ben, the youngest one, what I consider the family record. He was probably out of everyone I'm related to, one degree away, he is probably the least likely to ever, probably beyond Mark and Misty, who are unlikely to go homeless. Because just trickle down on where the wealth is and where it's going. He's the youngest. He will be reaping the benefits of David's wealth. David, I think, took the birthright of all his siblings a long time ago. Okay, I'll just go ahead and throw Team Bob in with Team Dave. This is my uncle that killed himself in 95. Zero response. The only one I've reached out to directly is Leslie, whatever. We don't know each other well. We met each other once. Never heard from Josh, oldest of all the cousins, or Shay. I think maybe even older than him. Shay's half black, and Granny believed that she was her cousin. We found out about her, after Bobby died. I've been asking Uncle Dave before for this information to come reach out to her. She's probably homeless, probably has been, something like that. No chance of interaction with Uncle Dave or Bob. Team Bob. Team Nora, I keep putting back into, like, this is where hope grows. This is where the future is. This is what I think. It's frustrating because Ed is an older cousin of mine from Nora's first marriage, completely unable to respond to me at all, really. He was very derogatory at the beginning about just not working, and has never, ever came on board. And just a conversation about, here's what the situation I'm in, Ed. What would you do? He can't even go to that level. Talked to Elizabeth when I was in the hospital leaving McDowell County. When Uncle Mike died, I was also talking to her mother. And Laura has been the most helpful with monetary support. She got me the phone charger, and we were in touch a lot over the summer. Laura, I think, and I have a strong bond because she has a life-threatening condition. She is a little younger than me, but she's always been very headstrong. You ain't the boss of me, that's her. And I think that she appreciates life on a very quick, it might end kind of level. She's got her own conditions for that. Elena has recently come. Elena and I were stressed, but Elena just sent me $15 or $20 a few weeks ago for the first time ever, and that was great. I did try to reach out to her recently. That's great. Nora herself, I thought was stronger, has not been unable to reach me or communicate, respond to me at all. It's sad. It's very unfortunate because I'm her favorite.
The reason I'm doing this video is to show and illustrate how many divorces there have been in the family and how fragmented the family was, how vulnerable it was for this to already happen. I'm the first Acosta college graduate, one of the only on my mother's side that graduated from college. Here's a picture of my Uncle Mike's 2 sons. There are 4 Acosta sons. We have only seen each other maybe twice in our lifetimes because they were always every other weekend, alternating from when we were supposed to be with my dad so that we could then, it was never allowed that we could see Michael's kids. And I don't think Michael had custody very often. Teresa, their mother, is my mother's first cousin. Brothers married first cousins in the 70s, 80s. If this relationship had existed between me and David and Chris, maybe I wouldn't be homeless. There just really isn't one. And I will also say there are some other family members. My dad has a half-brother, George, who's the eldest. He was also homeless and died prematurely, as did Uncle Bob, of suicide. George was different with cancer, but they both were homeless, firstborns, and died prematurely. I don't see why everybody shouldn't also know I never got to say goodbye to Uncle Mike, because the version of Tom Acosta that may have let me do that was the one that was putting, jokes on the Bills' vacation, when they got back. That person doesn't exist anymore. We put Sarah Stevens in charge. She's a divorce attorney, so we just made her a representative for over 16 years. That's just what happens. My dad has a younger brother, Angelo, and roughly about the same age. My mother has I have an Uncle John. Neither of these people were ever at all as close to me as my Uncle Mike was. He did pass away in 2023. I never got to really see him after 2016 when my father made me homeless because my Uncle Mike was the one selling cash to buy crack cocaine. I want to make sure every single boomer that's out there heard that one really good. My Uncle Mike was not at an internship for full-time free for 10 months. No, he was stealing cash to buy crack cocaine. That's why I was made homeless in 2016. Tom Acosta picked the wrong person the first time, then he made the wrong choice again by picking the wrong hospital, and today he's sleeping with the wrong 7-year-old boy, which is every single one of them. Will you back up, rewind, and play the tape again until it sticks? If you're my mother watching, we know it ain't gonna stick. You've already done enough when you hired Sarah Stevens. Thank you, Rita. You can sit down. If you're a voter in Mount Airy, I wouldn't feel too proud. You guys have been doing it too for over 16 years. I wish that there was more equity in these relationships. It's just, this is my Uncle Angelo's Facebook picture. It is not at all representative of somebody I think that can say they are fully a Christian when my father made me homeless in 2016, and he has never really been at all a part of my life, his ex-wives, or his children's. As far as Uncle John, I had hoped there would be more available that support he could at least be lending his ear. He's not. He actually flew over Denver when I tried to call him. He was going to Alaska from Florida to go hunting. That's what's important to him. Now, it just turns out I'm also the family leader, and that's been undisputed ever since I became one. So if I'm telling you, if you're watching this and you're a boomer, how about that? Those girls, Rachel, and Miriam, their daughters of Uncle Angelo and Uncle John, have always deserved better, and they deserve more than they've ever had before. We're just going to have to trust that this is the greatest country in the world, and what are we going to be doing about it? I know. I'm aware of this kind of phenomenon. First of all, my family is not at all able to really grasp anything of the magnitude of how life-threatening my situation is all of the time. I think they are always kind of assuming maybe someone else I'm closer to. This is why I'm doing the video. I'm also aware, I'm not aware of everything they're going through either. But the thing is, my life is at stake. They should be participatory in at least answering the phone, and that's not happening. I forgot to mention my Uncle George did have two daughters. They passed away. There is a granddaughter. I'm not sure how she's doing. During the time I've been homeless, other family I want to mention, one thing about Uncle Dave, he did build a vacation home, and I did reach out to him before I went homeless, and then I let him know I was homeless, and he did not respond. And then the other family where my grandmother's house was, built by my great-grandfather, a World War I veteran, it was passed on to my grandmother's twin sister when she died, and then she passed on to her heirs. They sold the house, and Bonnie is the only one that has contributed at all to my survival with like $20, and I just don't feel like that's really going to be enough to say that they've actually done enough when they sold my grandmother's house, and I just will not be changing my feelings on that. If my grandmother was alive, I do not think I would have been homeless either time, and certainly not for 507 days. I'm really trying to keep this video focused on my communication with all of the major relationships I have. Many of these are, family, and it's across the country. I'm about 1,000 miles away from the nearest family member. I want to just address quickly work. I have a work opportunities, things I'm doing on that. I have the most recent video I have is called the Fall 2022 Employment Update. I'm going to be doing a new version of that. I do have a job interview on Friday. I'm weary because I do not have a consistent, safe place to go. I'm frequently traveling across the city just for one place to be at one time.
The Loudermilks. The Loudermilks know Team Maddie and Team Donna, Team Tom, Rita, Tom, Nathan, Drew. They are a family that I really had when I finally heard from them.
This is a picture of me and my dad right around the time that my parents separated. And what I want to say about the Loudermilk family is they probably are the ones that have instilled the greatest spiritual education, religious training for me. And they also know most of my dad's family, including Michael and a little bit of some of his family. They are the ones that I decided should have a role in coming back to me for a couple of reasons. The family, my dad's doing something incredibly wrong. I'm homeless. It would be right to help. Also, they have a son who is in prison, incarcerated for killing two people. They can't take Jordan out of prison, but they can help save my life. It would be the right thing to do. They also know my mother's divorce attorney. I'm fairly certain that they do. It's a small circle. This is a vital group. They should be a part of seeing me get better and not be homeless anymore. I have another video called The Aftermath of What Happens After You Give Up on one of the best things you ever created, which is, your son. This kind of goes into more of specifically the communication, but there's a little bit more I've already prepared about the Loudermilks because they do matter to me a lot.
Which is Judy, the wife, pastor's wife. Now, like Judy, I'm an educator, and I really, really hope that they are usually going to always be the best because I have to just tell the truth. Knowing it was my third winter homeless, on Christmas Eve, Judy Loudermilk asked me a question. Why are you homeless? Merry Christmas, stay warm, anything positive like that, just why are you homeless? And I didn't hear from her again for a long time. And I hope that all the pastors' wives in the world watching this video understand that we're the best. We can always be the best, now, forever forward. I really thought there would be huge opportunity for some progress to be made is turned into slush, nothing. Woman asked me why I was homeless on Christmas Eve, and I just heard from her the other day, just telling me that my Aunt cares, and I need to know specifically how. She's got a son that I generally care a lot about, still always have. She's not able to deal with the reality of homelessness. I don't have much faith that'll ever come around. I never had much faith in my... After my dad returned to West Virginia following 9/11, thinking that going further away from us after being divorced was the best for him, he eventually decided that Cornerstone Family Church in Princeton, West Virginia would be the best. So he believed it. I did too. Patrons in West Virginia, because Pastor Scott blocked me for no reason. I also tried to ask him for some help, like with the homeless shelter resources here. He just can't deal with life. And I don't have much faith for his wife, but she doesn't, I don't think she knows me. I don't think we've ever talked. I know I've seen her do church announcements. These are our spiritual advisors. I'm not going to them. We're dealing with some heavy stuff. Yes, my dad's sleeping with a 7-year-old boy. I'm homeless. They should help. They cannot find a way to help. Probably never will.
Is it sinking in yet? This was never acceptable to me, and it's never going to come off YouTube. This was never acceptable in 1997 or all the years after that, and we're going to be dealing with it for the end of time.
Another family that has known me for a long time, almost as long as the Fries, the Griffins. Cynthia Griffin was one of my first babysitters, then Melissa was, and then Becky was. I heard from Becky while homeless for the first time since we moved out of Mount Airy. That was incredible. That was great. Samantha sent me the only person to send me a Christmas card last year. When I had a call with Jeff, it was the day I went to detox right over here in August, I believe. And it was a hard day. It was also the day that somebody came at me with the nunchucks.
Somebody actually did come with me at Nunchucks, but at the beginning of my homelessness, the first week in September 2022, this person actually came to me at Union Station with brass knuckles, and I went to detox really to find a safe place to be. Because of that, I think that person was overreacting and never really was intending to hurt me. I could go more into things later in another video on that. But the key takeaway here is if you are homeless and you need a safe place to be, detox is a solution. It will be a place that's monitored, staffed, and you can be safe there 24/7. And that's why I went along to find hopefully some resources for housing that never turned into much. I will probably do more of a video on this.
Didn't hurt me, but it was like a threat. It was an incredibly alarming, real world, can't handle it kind of day. Jeff was right there by my side. Cynthia has been there too. Also has Melissa. I can pretty much reach all of them, anytime I need to, and they've always stood by my side. They always have, and I think probably always will. They saw me as a little kid at like 5. We saw each other in 2010s. They love me. Nothing else. I have noticed Mormon families, Jewish people, more understanding and empathy, compassion from people of those two faiths. The only Islamic person I can really think of in this whole experience would be when I got robbed and I went to 7-Eleven. I got robbed in my apartment about right before I went to my dad's in West Virginia about this time last year. And that man, I was telling him I'm homeless and I just got chased by the baseball bat. I need to be here and call the police. And he was like, you must get out of the store right now. I'm imagining he's heterosexual, probably in a long-term relationship, stable one, and for them 2 reasons, not his faith. That was the main driver of you need to get out of here. He did not care if I died. I want to talk about a special group, gay men in my family. The ones I know, Andy, incarcerated. Andy's really a wild card. I don't hear from him enough. I worry about him so much. He only has communication, I believe, with me and Crystal. Nobody's done their family homework, which is part of it's write a letter to Andy, so I can give it to him. I'll say right now, to the whole world, if you, for the first time, I'm saying this again, if you care about the future of his family, if you care about someone that's been incarcerated since 2020 and is in a very hard spot, if you would like to talk to him, give him help, just talk to me and we will make it happen, because I would like to let him know there's people outside of prison that care about him. Whether you know him or not, it doesn't matter. I would just like to open that opportunity. Andy, I hope things are good enough by the time he gets out of prison that he could say, I'm going to come with Nate. I'm not going to be so dependent on my family, because he was already homeless before. They let him be that way. They probably will again. They really love him. He is going to have to find a way to make it in the real world, hopefully without his parents' influence. Like, that would be great if he could. Other people that are gay in the family. Dallas was my great aunt Gertrude's first child. She had really young, and my grandmother Evelyn raised Dallas, from my understanding, before I was born. Really, he became a truck driver. I've seen him very little. He would be someone that should be closer to me, really, I think. But I've only seen him one time in my entire life. The other person that's gay in the family would be Tim. Tim Blevins, my mom's favorite cousin. Might be brother sister with Regina that I think I met. Yeah, it was totally last night. I'm trying to do a personal shout out to Regina. Regina is someone of a very, very extreme high net worth in the family. Should know what's right as a change. Should just get right with my side right now. Should just be like, let's end this. But it would be opening up like my mom's childhood cousin relationship. If she's ever met me, I don't know that she has. She should love me. But Tim is the gay one, and my last interaction with Tim was right about the time I became HIV positive, before I went homeless, about a whole 2 years before. And he was not even able to really be there for me at all then. He didn't even know I had HIV. It was just, I was the onset of it. And I could tell he was concerned, and I could tell he almost kind of knew what it was. But I could also tell the care level in him was just not there. Tim is never been homeless. He is gay. He's got a lot of money, but his family, his parents were missionaries. There's been a long gap between closeness and that. It's my grandfather Clifford's brother's kids. That is a very, that is like from the past. People from my hometown, my peers that are in this group, is like, I'm trying to think of people that were like very much like about my age, very close to it. And, you know, we came from America's #1 TV hometown. We are like America's best place to live, like the original one. What has happened, what's been our interaction with peers there? There is really, I can think of for specifically one other guy I went to my age that I went to elementary school with. Here's the situation. I reached out to him. I said, what would you say have been the most major struggles in your life? He said battling, overcoming an assault, physical assault. I don't know any more details. And battling alcoholism. And then like a few minutes later, he's like, oh yeah, I've been homeless too. And I'm like, you forgot? He's gay, been homeless. His parents we're not married. We're not together very much at all, ever. What a coincidence. I want to talk about boys we grew up on the street with. So Bill's right next door, about 2 door houses down for a while, was Nathan Tillotson. Nathan Tillotson, heterosexual, married, I think with kids. His dad was a cop, arrested my dad in 1997. We knew each other and everything before that. We were pretty good buds for a while. He went to the Navy and was homophobic towards me before I went homeless. I haven't found anything else since then. Derek would have been one I've never reached out to, but we were good buds. He was older, he about 5-6 years older than me. I would really like to get in touch with Derek and Nathan Fry. That would be very interesting because we grew up on the same street. How we ended up under these parameters of everything we can and can't change, it would be very interesting. What I want to say here, I guess, at this point in the video is it's just very much like I get to see and have a lot of different types of communication with different types of people in the real world all of the time. People here, I could be just waiting on transfer for train. People here are not going to like look at me and immediately say, that guy's homeless. It's just, it doesn't happen that often in like this kind of situation right here. It just doesn't. Just the overall interactions I have with people, and the situation I'm in, and their response to it is just, it's incredibly fascinating. So that's what I wanted to share this video. One person, I'm going to mention this name, JJ Kyle. Pretty sure JJ Kyle was gay. I'm pretty sure he was in a very precarious situation, probably, you know, worse one than me at all times. Probably like first grade. I don't think his parents, he maybe only had a mother and low income, high risk for homelessness. Another person in America's number one TV hometown. If he's still alive, I praise the Lord. Hopefully he is. Russell Davis was, I don't think Russell Davis is gay, I think he's straight. Russell was the first person I ever asked for help when I was still at the Greyhound station in Atlanta, finding out I was being homeless. I asked him for like $5 for like a drink. My Cash App card was stolen. He could not help with the drink. He had already been homeless before. He lived in his car. He was only homeless for a brief period. And he's never been supportive. He's never interacted. He actually is a big disappointment because I remember him from second grade. We were pretty good buds. Played a lot of heads up, 7-up, kickball, and he should have just been like, you know what? He should have been a person that cared since he was homeless. I would like to be in touch with Anderson Rowe, one of my good friends from like first, second grade. Haven't been able to reach anybody in that family. His dad was mayor of Mount Airy, North Carolina. That could be a game changer. I love his mother. I don't know his older brother Walk very well, but that would be a family that's really important and key that I cannot find. What I can find is Sammy Salick. Sammy Salick and I, she comes from the country club. I've never been homeless. Well, I think parents still married. She's married, maybe with kids. Very hard person to actually have compassion for me. I asked her for like a $1, $2 to help pay for coffee. She couldn't do it. Contrasting that with someone I met here. I'm going to talk about gay men here in Denver a little bit. Peyton Michael, I think is his last name, from Lakeland, Florida. Worked at Waffle House. I think he was homeless for a brief period, but he was always very housing insecure. He did like me when I first moved here. We were hanging out when we were buddies. I think that if I was to ask Peyton for $2 at 4 o'clock in the morning to pay for coffee, I think he would respond differently. I really do, even though he has less, just because we have more in common. His response would have been probably a lot better than Sammy. Sammy still hasn't had any, and I'm kind of looking at her as like, you kind of have to be a poster child for our generation in America's hometown. Number one, you have to be the one that tells people and, you know, changes. You've got to shift from like, you're this level of care to like this level of care, because I remember Sammy Sally's mother. Like, these people should have more heart. Another group of people from my hometown that do have more heart, one of them is living right here in Denver, the Johnson family. Mr. Johnson and he helped me get a job. He was one of the first people to send me money, and then when I got my pants dropped, he sent me money again. He was like, that's crazy. He's like a good example of good heart. He's also married, never been homeless. I think his parents are still together. We'll call Mrs. Johnson, his sister. I worked with her and my dad. She knows my dad. But thereby, she's harder to get any real, genuine, just care, just general messages of care and empathy come from her brother. Way more, like 10 times more than from her. She knows my dad. It's just, I don't think her and my dad were very close. It's just because she knows my dad. That's the difference. It's extremely crazy how that is. Gay men from Winston-Salem. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one because there's not much to say. Durrani Wynn and I went to high school together. He came out, I think, in college. We were roommates senior year for a little bit. I had to reach out to him. I think I sent him a friend request last night, but I don't really expect much out of that relationship. We were never very close. He never seemed to care about me, ever. He's got a close-knit family. He's not married, I don't think. He is gay. I don't think if you are not married, but you have a situation where you have a very close-knit relationship with multiple people in your family, maybe grandparents or a group of siblings, that kind of puts you in a very similar place with people that are married, always have stayed married, and are unable to really know anything about the magnitude of what I'm going through, being isolated, third winter homeless, from a multiply divorced family. It is extremely hard. Johnny would probably be in that bunch. Another person that's very interesting would be a bisexual person that I know. They, and all of the ones that I know, they have the characteristics. You swoop right in with the perfect zone, married people. You get all the benefits of that class that, you know, kind of can write me off and doesn't really have the magnitude to care if I live tomorrow or not. You're just kind of like, well, you know, it's just, that's gonna happen. But me and him, that relationship I have, we confide in each other. I know he does care. He went through a lot of similarities with a lot of trauma and abuse growing up. And he's someone I think I'll always be friends with. I hope to. I can't really talk much on any other relationship from Winston-Salem a whole lot, other than Amanda, my prom date, and her mother, Beth Hayes. Beth Hayes, here's what I want to say that I've observed. Like, if your parents were married and you completed a relationship, either by your spouse dying or maybe it was you were married for a long time and then you got divorced, those people right there, red flag. You guys are most likely to be like Beth Hayes, the woman that I give a lot of hugs to. Her spouse died, and she sped away from me. Mashed the gas down was the most hurtful thing that ever happened to me while homeless until I was kidnapped. The crazy thing is, similarities she's got in common with kidnappers, both of them. Both of them came from families where their parents stayed married. The one of them, the younger one, had just left a marriage after a long time and had kids. These people right here, there's someone in Denver who was in a long-term gay relationship, very stable, affluent. We've known each other a long time. We know each other since 2020. Very similar traits to just like ruthlessly uncaring. My ex Ray would also be in this bunch. Ray actually did have parents divorced when he was fairly young. However, his father remarried quickly and has been remarried for a long time. Ray's mother, who died when we were dating, would have hated that I was homeless. Like, probably would have just, like, I think, done something. She had, however, what kind of kept Ray in that zone, that very strong network of sisters and family and, you know, their husbands, and just kind of like a team that was not going to let one go down. Ray has helped. Technically, he has. I did come to his house twice, and twice he said, "Get the fuck out of my house." He said he was going to give me an iPhone. He never did. He told me he can't. He doesn't have any money, and I asked for $8. He said he can't do it. Ray is someone who, you know, has had the benefits of living in a cohesive, strong enough family to where they become those red flags, where they are the ones that are unable to have the least compassion. They have the least compassion, least empathy. They are the greatest ones at most risk to be vile to my face, put me in a life-threatening situation, like it's freezing outside, get the fuck out of my house, drive away from me, kidnap me, assault me, leave me in another state. Those are the people that contrasted to, I'm gonna start this, thanks, just people that I have probably the greatest assimilation to, the greatest connection to, would be gay and homeless, but almost about closest buddies, parents aren't together, never were, or even sometimes like probably one of the, honestly, maybe one of the greatest, strongest connections I have with people, gay, homeless, and dead parents. Those people seem to get me incredibly well. And one example would be someone that came to my hotel room. It was very cold, it was starting to get cold. I said, "Do you have a place to go?" And he was just like, "Thank you for caring about me." He came over, went there for a whole night. He was there long enough to just with the ticks and sounds of, microwave refrigerator. He was like, I gotta go. And I knew, but I was worried about him before he got there, because he got there late. Another one was a friend that also invited to the hotel, and I had it this summer. He came right in, he gave me a big hug. And when I saw him for the first time since then, about 2 weeks ago, it was just like, 2 days went by. We are very, 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 we understand this life and how we are trying to always, constantly do the right thing, but we cannot break it. And our dreams would also kind of be in this. Just as parents that are alive, they do have a strained relationship. Probably more in common with me. The thing that I think we have, I never been to Afghanistan. To serve, and he's always been kind of in a relationship. His family comes from, they are the half-bars, and my family was the half-littles. And that's probably the biggest difference, I think, between us, really. And he hated I was homeless more than anybody. Through it all, I think he really did try very hard, as much as he could. And the whole chapter might not be over. Gay men in West Virginia and our relationship while homeless. Interesting. One of them is 19 years old. We chatted before I went homeless a little bit. He was 18. He might be 20 now. He rescued me from somebody who was in that class I just described. What it was is he was a partner. This man told me we could hang out and have like one night where he lived, and then he told me as I was getting in the car, we were going to the pharmacy. I needed to ride to the pharmacy, and then I needed somewhere to be that night. We went to the Walmart, and then we went to this home out in the country. He actually was in a relationship. I didn't know that. And then I was in the garage, and his father-in-law came out with pizza. And it was nice that he did, but it was just like, I didn't know that they were there. It's just like, he didn't care to disclose any of that information, probably because I'm homeless. And it was just kind of like, well, I didn't feel, it was like, oh, I should have had that information. And I called the younger one that I knew online virtually for a while. He himself was extremely at risk for being homeless. Not a lot of family support, family was not together. He is gay, had not been homeless yet, but was like way incredibly on that line. He is now married to a man, so he has kind of put himself in the best spot. If he's gonna be homeless, he's gonna be homeless with somebody. It's not likely I don't think it's gonna happen. I think he did a really good thing. I don't know if it was like, was he old enough? I don't know, but I understand. I think, without knowing a whole lot about the situation, I think that he did what I think he made a good move. He rescued me. It's the only time we met each other. He just drove me back to downtown Charleston. We have a good connection. There's a man in Maryland I don't know. I haven't met, but we've talked for a long time. When the young one messed his car up in the snowstorm last winter, I connected him to my friend in Maryland, and he rescued him. So it was kind of like a double rescue. Real big key point I'm trying to make here for anybody who's not gay. You see, like, we are gay. He hadn't been homeless yet. He was close to it. He knew it. And I was already. And I was kind of in a life-threatening situation. I was with someone who was dishonest with me and went out in the woods with his crazy in-laws. They were nice, but they were crazy. And this man in Maryland, I had never met. We had been talking for a long time. And this younger man, all three of us had, at the point, never met each other. However, man in Maryland, due to the relationship I had virtually for a long time, we all saved each other's lives when no one else was going to. That's an interesting thing. And compare that to like my brother, Drew. He's 3 years younger, but drove away from me while being homeless, denied me HIV medications. Just, real brother and those kind of guys. Another one I'll talk about is one that passed right when I got to Charleston. His name was Michael. There's two Michaels that died kind of side by side, my Uncle Mike, and then this Michael. And Charleston and I were friends in 2015, 2016, and we saw each other, I'd say pretty regularly. We had a good connection. I liked him. I had not been homeless yet, but I became homeless not long after that when my dad met me. So what I remember about Michael is very much of a tough, kind in general, but very lonesome no family could. I think his parents were dead. And when he died, I found out that he died through his profile online, and somebody, it's not him, somebody explained that they were his like best friend, and they were trying to find people. He had died like within a week of me getting into Charleston, and I really thought it was, I had a lot more death later on in his journey, 504 days homeless with people in Denver, but he was one that I was like, I remember him exactly, and I'm so awful. I feel bad that I got here right, like I wish that I had got to see him. I never got to see a friend. Another one came in Denver, I'll talk about, or West Virginia, would be my friend Jordan. Died before I went homeless. And I always liked Jordan. Jordan and I met at one time, but we always stayed in touch virtually. I met his partner, the one that he was in a long-term relationship with, but did not know it until way after we met. He was homeless. He was living in a storage unit. Feeling incomplete without, if I've also noticed if you have had loss in your family, he would be one that had like an extra dose of compassion. Like, this person might not normally be that way, but just because they were going through something, had like way more heart than you're like.
This is a picture of me in my apartment less than 1 year before I went homeless. And I don't think this is the caliber of person when you think of homeless person in your mind. I don't think you think of that person looking like this. And this is me today in the video. But I wanted to say, recollecting the experience I just described with when I knew Jordan and meeting his partner for the first time, it recollected me to another relationship I had right before I went homeless in 2016. So I was never homeless until this relationship pretty much came to an end. And it would have been with a divorced bisexual man who had plenty of money. And one thing the two things that kick in here are, I helped him find himself and discover it was okay to have that, side of him that was into men. And I also know that he was very adamant to me all the time about how much he loved his kids, and that he got to a point to realize he can love his kids and love who he wants to love, and that be the same thing. Had I been homeless, though, I do not think that relationship would have ever matured into a better, stronger situation. It never really got too far. It actually came to a very sad end because that man killed himself later when I was, about 4 years later, when I was in Denver. I really don't think that the man that I saw in the storage unit would have been as kind and as genuinely connected to me had he not had the loss. If I had not had a home, I don't think the man that killed himself would have had anything to do with me. I just really, really strongly feel that way. One more thing that I can definitely say I've observed is the man living in a storage unit probably got there because the man that I knew first, just met one time, he died. I think if he had not died, his partner would not have become homeless. Because I also know what it's like to not be homeless. I need to tell you, we only met one time, and it was only like, we need to spend, it's cold outside right now. We need to spend time together to be warm. It was not like we were going to have any future. It was just like a one engagement, one time thing. And it brought him healing that I knew his partner and could tell him some things that he never knew. That's the kind of the extent of the relationship. It is just, one visit. That's it. I had 2 jobs when the week I went homeless, and this is one of them at a restaurant. That sign behind me says, "You got a piece of my heart." And one of the most important things I want to share in this video is I had a friendship with someone who wasn't homeless, and they came to see me when I wasn't homeless. I found out that that last visit, they had actually recently become homeless, and they actually died. When I was with them, they never mentioned that, and I understand now that they were coming to see me just to feel regular and normal and have a lighthearted moment, and it didn't need to be, the conversation should have had nothing to do with being homeless. And I hope that moment was good for him. It was just very unsettling finding out later, 6 months later in the winter, I actually met with one of his friends who was also homeless. Wasn't previously. It was just kind of like, well, you knew him? Oh, wow, I can't believe it. And that friend of his was the person who kept me warm in like -5 degrees. This is a picture of my mother and I in 2019, and it's important to just kind of acknowledge, if my mother was to pass away, because she's not homeless, she won't be viewed the same way. Her death will not be experienced in the same way. If I die homeless, I have kind of died more of a failure, and when I find someone like the friend I just explained who died, and I found his friend, those kind of moments are like very different than finding out someone who is not homeless died. It's very unique about being homeless because that relationship was not valued by the world as much by anyone. And my mother is the one who's absolutely 100% fine if I die right now. I also know somebody that is close to my family who was heterosexual and also a veteran. He was temporarily homeless for a while, and his solution was always for me to kind of go it alone and get a tent. And I am, as a gay man, would never do a tent. I've never been in a tent. I've also never panhandled on the street for change. Those are things I just would not do. And he was very adamant that I needed to man up. And I just thought that was peculiar because I'm already doing that all the time. Kind of drive home really hard how much of a double standard there is and how much more likely someone is to be homeless if they're gay. Here's a picture of my brother, my cousin Andy, who's gay and incarcerated, my grandmother, and myself. You really can't tell that me and Andy are gay. We've already been homeless since this picture was taken. Fortunately, we weren't homeless as children. I have seen that. But, the conditions on which a gay man has to, in 2023, 24, survive are very different than one of a straight man. It is still, my straight friend from the family related to me, not technically related, but close, was could not understand why I wouldn't do things his way, and thought I was, could not find any way to respect of how I'm trying to survive versus his method, which was very alone. And that's my technique. It relies on people. When you don't have a home, you don't have the ability to ever really be alone or go home and close the door. You are always never home. You are always a guest. You are always on the on position, and it's 504 days. I can't do this video and not talk about what should be one of the most important relationships I have lifelong, the one with my brother. I can only really tell you that it has never got much better since I was made homeless by my father in 2016, and my brother drove away from me in the winter when I was on the sidewalk, and he thought that was normal, and he still has trouble understanding that. Kind of think also about the man who wanted me to go be in a tent. I think he knew my grandmother. These are the people that, would have been passing me potato salad 20 years before and all knowing each other. And it got down to the extreme one-by-one individual family relationships of I never did anything. It's just the internalized homophobia that is just so rampant. And my grandmother, older woman, conservative, but she did raise Dallas before I was even born. Important to remember when your parents divorce in 1997 that when you ever see each other again, it's always kind of the full picture is not there. This is the last time my brother and father and I actually ever met since we did in Kansas in 2020, right at the start of 2020. And this picture shows that you can't see that my brother actually walks and talks and acts and follows my mother. We're a divorced family. He kind of doesn't really have much of a connection to my father and never did again after my father made me homeless. This is just one moment where we seem to be okay, but it's just one of 3 times we've ever saw each other since my father made me homeless. Often when a person becomes homeless, all of the blame is on them. They didn't work hard enough. It's important to realize there's about a 1.5 year difference between the bowling with my father when we had breakfast with my brother and me ditching my suitcase, having returned back to Denver unexpectedly after traveling across the country. And this time knowing that that's a matter of the heart. That is, the only thing that really happened in all of our relationships is my father went to January 6th. He knew I was homeless the day I became homeless. On September 8th, 2022, he waited until Christmas Day, knowing that my life was at risk until it was appropriate for him or he felt like reaching out. That was what happened. This is a picture of my father's home. It's 6,000 square feet. He doesn't have a college degree. He does have a divorce. I'm single, never married. I have a college degree and 10 months of interning for free full time. It really feels like that wealth was kind of evaporated and soaked into his generation. I worked plenty of jobs and I've always worked. It just doesn't seem like I didn't work hard enough. I worked to pay for a studio apartment that cost more than his monthly mortgage, and it was a basic efficiency studio apartment for $1,200 a month in Denver. And I went there 2 weeks before COVID.
If I worked with you at John Hancock Financial Services, you are in a solid relationship, you could be a secretary, I'll make a paycheck to paycheck. Here, you don't have any. I'm gonna work with you for about a year. I was successful in that job. We got on pretty good. Everybody and me at that job got on great. I knew Chester Ralston was never gonna be that bridge was never there. So like that was just Scott Zorrell, Will Smith. I tried to reach out to them, but like they have. It doesn't matter money, the amount of money you made. It doesn't matter. And even though I knew you way more recently, but it's been like 13 years. You are kind of like with the fries. You're just. It's like it doesn't register with you at all that my life is at stake. You used to care about when I would go to lunch. The fries, like I used to watch Mr. Fry, Todd, like hip soccer. It's just kind of like I remember Nathan Fry telling us not to smoke cigarettes and like really caring about that. But now, no. I mean, you're like with Sammy Sally. It's just like very, very, very low. It's like if I could get hit by a truck, I don't think you'd pull my body out of the road. It's just like you are really on that passive, like the German population with the Holocaust going on. That's kind of like where a lot of you are. It's very sad. And it's just because it's like you're unable to relate to any of this. And before I went homeless or whatever, my dad and I would talk about this a lot, and I'm just kind of gearing up to go speak at Colorado Springs on the AM radio. American Film Radio, because I would love to do this with like Jay Wilson, Kyra Wilson. Kyra Wilson was a took-ball instructor when I worked for WVU. Jay Wilson and Karen are two Christians that blocked me. Leaders of McDowell County should know everything my dad says is wrong. Should know it's right to help me because I'm homeless, but they're not able to. They're in a long-term relationship. They're married. They have never been homeless. They're not gay. It's just like we know the golden rule. We know all these things. But like it's the people that are more like me. Gay men from college. I know. Well, I never liked Elon University very much. They were never really closely with me as friends. It'd be interesting to talk to Matt Owens. Matt Owens dropped out. His parents were very affluent. Parents divorced. He became a flight attendant after dropping out for being an alcoholic. He's pretty well public information back then. He was my closest friend back then. I talked to him one time, the entire time I was working in West Virginia, and he just told me to leave. That was leave. That was the only word he said. So it'd be interesting to see if things have changed at all with him. But I have reached out, can't find him. Also, the only other person I really want to talk about, and Colt. Colt was technically my first boyfriend before Stevie, the real heavy relationship. Colt, where I remember that being in 2006, he had transferred away from the university because his partner, long-term boyfriend, graduated. They moved to Washington, D.C. Relationship became over. And I think Colt, this is what is key. I have maybe reached out to Colt one time, just in general, not really expect a whole lot. We didn't date a whole lot for short term. Colt, though, I think was actually housing insecure and came back to Elon because going back to Elon was a way to not be homeless. No family support. And he would remind me of someone like one of the gay guys I worked with at Dish here at corporate in Denver, with that very strong, they know they're the only, that was kind of the class I was in before I went homeless. It was, if I don't succeed all the time, this is what will happen. And I can't bear to think about that. And it's sad that those people, like the one that worked with here in Denver at Dish, I think his partner just got out of jail, and he was feeling the grind of I have to keep train on the tracks no matter what. I can't imagine if I'm in that situation. And the only thing different about me was I actually already was in 2016. So seeing that, kind of picking up on that. Those people would be your very strong leaders in a group. Someone's gonna have always know just kind of a desire to thrive, but always on that survival tick. Those people are not able to they can't get bogged down in me. Which is sad because we should be lifting each other up, but they can't. They can't do it. I would not reach out to Colt. And all the other gay guys that I knew at Elon, I think they are completely unable to talk to me, really, because they're just not good people with that. Everybody I've kind of had a relationship with, I've kind of had some sort of general support, at least soft touch, except for Jeremy, the one that I was in a 2-year relationship with. I have not heard from him since before summer 2020. It's the last time I ever heard from him. He's gonna come out here, never heard from him again. I'd like to reach out to his family, his mom particularly, but it's not. I don't know. It's just kind of not something I think about much. Everyone else has, in some way, at some point. Stevie is always there. I need to get in touch with him today, actually. But yeah. Well, I saw Alan. I did a post recently on, more of the major loves in case I die. So I saw Alan right before I got kidnapped. He helped me apply for housing. Louis here in Denver has just overall just generally been distant, but kind of like, I hope you make it. Stevie's been great. Here's what I want to say about Stevie. Stevie is an interesting person in this whole experience because he and I were together in 2007, 2009. He had been married for about 20 years before that to women. He has 2 children. And he became homeless after we broke up. Shortly after that, he lost his job in recession. And the interesting thing about Steven is you would not know he was gay. You would just never know. And he would be like, his family knew he was. And I think that's why he was helped when he was homeless. But he did inherit a lot of money while he was incarcerated. I think those 2 things are very related. I think the father, it's really interesting. Steven's wife seems to be going really good. And he was sad that he had to cry to tell me, I'll let you stay here, Nate, but I can't. Because, I'm the only one making decisions here. And it's very sweet. It's very hard. It's just hard that my real family, my parents, my brother can't have that compassion. They're not gay, they have it homeless. They know my dad. Steven never did know my dad. He kind of knew my mom a little bit. And it's really peculiar. If you knew my dad in any shape or form, that's one of the things. Mary Lewis, the most influential person, probably from the most affluent family in McDowell County. She donated for my GoFundMe $20, and there are people that make a whole lot, don't have a lot of resources that had donated a whole lot more. That's kind of what I'm getting into. That's part of this thing in the video. There's a gay man in Charleston that I didn't see when I was there, donated significantly for the GoFundMe, and also $40, $50 sometimes. And that's not, I didn't ask for it, and it was very peculiar. He stopped talking to me, really kind of all of a sudden, and he did it as another person experienced loss. His grandmother was kind of very close to him. She died during this time. I think that has had an influence on that's very interesting. That back when that happened, he was very, this is back when I was moving to West Virginia and had lost my HIV medications and was going to my dad's house, and then had got to Charleston, and then a couple of times after I got back to Denver. But then it was a period of when people are very close to me, and then when they are not, sometimes this is what's going on in their lives. It's very interesting how that is. I wish that man, I reached out to him this morning because I was doing this video. I hope that me and him get in touch.
Me and that man did get in touch while I'm editing this video, and I want to tell you 2 things. One, this is a picture of me waking up in Columbus, Ohio at a bus transfer, having known about 5 minutes earlier that my duffel bag with all of the things that I brought with me and prepared, my HIV medications, I'm bipolar, so I was on lithium, and I went immediately into a lithium withdrawal, which caused mood changes. Those were the conditions in which I saw my father for the first time since 2020 when we had breakfast with my brother and went bowling. I had to then immediately, to stay healthy, tell my father I didn't have a choice. It was basically because I was homeless, because I was traveling alone, because I slept after 2 days traveling on Greyhound. I didn't have a way to I put my bag around my arm. Somebody took it. That's what happened. The consequence is I have to immediately tell my father whether I wanted to or not, because we only had one vehicle. We were not staying at his first house that we've already seen. We were staying at his other home. I had to make preparations right away and immediately tell my father I was HIV positive. And that was not something I would have done had I not been homeless. The man that I was referring to that was very generous and didn't stop abruptly, we got in touch for the first time in a while, and he was asking me if I was still at the homeless shelter, the permanent bed that I was at 6 months ago. He was unaware that all of the changes, the weather conditions, the 67.3 miles, all of that was brand new information to him, and he cannot believe this is what I'm still enduring. On the topic of relationships, except for the one you have with work, one of the things that I did do a job temporarily this summer after returning back from West Virginia when that became a very disastrous situation, I used my tax return from 2022 to buy a Greyhound ticket to get me back to where I already was, a very common theme while you're homeless, getting back more of what you had, going back where you already were. But I was working in a warehouse for a Pepsi distributor, and I just want to note, okay, so I have a job temporarily for a few days, but now I have less time to figure out where I'm going to be spending the night, and I'm going to be bringing everything I have with me to that job. I have got to be physically prepared just the same and assimilate as if nobody ever knew I was homeless. I have to also magically survive when I'm not working. And the hardest part I realized about this job was I hadn't done warehouse work in a long time. My body is conditioned like an antelope. It is really ready for long distances, and this kind of work was kind of fit for a mule. And I was just like, because I'm homeless, there's no way I can condition for this. My likelihood of an at-work accident or injury is extremely high. It was only for a few days. It was very tough, though, having to work under those conditions invisibly.
More relationships I have right here in Denver. I've been here in Denver. Rusty was the one that was in Golden when I had to recently saw pictures maybe of me moving everything on the street, like in my hands, backpack, all that. Very hard job. Rusty and I met for Thanksgiving 2022. I hadn't seen each other since. I did reach out to him when I was at the hotel because I was like, I have to have a plan after the hotel runs out in a couple days. And I thought I could make something to work with Rusty. I saw an opportunity. And so when I met Rusty, it was almost immediately like, okay, I've been homeless, I'm gay, my parents aren't married. He almost robotically moved into you just live here, stay here with me. And we were kind. He made me heart-shaped empanadas one night. It was just very it was just kind of like almost like dance recital. It was just like, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna stick together. And then within 48 hours, that came completely unglued. One of the person that I saw came to my hotel that I saw 2 weeks ago, knows him, and he was like, yep, it just was never gonna work. But it's just alarming how that was known. Versus, people that have absolutely, he's not homeless because he's in government housing. And he was, giving me everything he could, like a lot of TLC, and just, we had seen each other. It's been a long time. Compare that to the Fries family's known me, my family since before I existed, or any of the other people that were very affluent and able, immediately could just, it's so ridiculous what does this take? And how easy it would be. It's not my mom, it's Uncle Dave. It ain't them, it's cousin Ed, who built my Aunt Nora a house out of his bare hands when she came back from the hospital. Another woman was in the home. How much people will do, it's just it is incredible. And that 6 months ago at the hospital, the suicide, I was wanting to kill myself over this. Now I'm just I cannot believe where people's level of their expectations from me, what they're willing to do, and where they're at in life. It's incredible. It's really worth talking about. This next group of people is an interesting bunch because these are people that I saw, they're gay men, and I saw them for a short amount of time, but for all day. So I learned a lot about them, and one was from Los Angeles and one was from New York City. I met these two individuals in detox, and the one from Los Angeles, parents were not together. He's gay, had not been homeless before, but he was only not homeless because he was actually directly enrolled in the rehab that they have above detox, which was you work a job, you right here downtown. There was some, general, there was some structure there, and I did try to get into that place, and I was denied because I had a suicide hospitalization. That was the reason that I was barred from going there, which would have been a safe and consistent place to go. It could have been really close to employers. It should have worked out, but I just didn't say the right things. Like that. That man was kind of like in a position of, he worked at a bank. He was about my age, exactly. And he was kind of like, I know I need to change, but I don't know if I can. Like, drug use. The other one, and I have always felt 100% confident with that, like, not an issue. I have $5 to eat on until 6. That's the problem. The other one was from New York City, Upper East Side, Mega Millions. And it was just immediate of where he was in life, exactly my age, but very successful, chasing happiness, like pivotally had the world was his oyster, but he was just kind of like, what can I be doing right now to be as happy as I can in the next, like tonight, tomorrow? Like, it was just kind of like, he knew he would probably never be homeless. Another person I could think of that would kind of be like that would be somebody who was like, I rarely meet people that are like 5-6 years younger than me, but I did meet someone before I went homeless who was like that, and he was a trust fund kid. This person is a person I don't like normally seek out to be around, except sometimes we just see each other. This is the person that is my age, gay, never homeless. I met their parents, and I loved their parents. Their parents had, I had most interaction with the mom. The dad was, he had worked hard all his life and was going deaf, was watching TV. It was overall somebody that I felt like I could have seen in my hometown or at any point in my life. And the mother was just, she was a volunteer at the library, very, very personable. Reminded me a lot of like Amanda's mom before she became, like prior to me being like regular Amanda's mom. She was somebody that I really enjoyed talking to, and want to mail the postcard, the last thing hey my dad ever did to them. Still do, still have their address. Her son though, the one I have a relationship, he does more drugs than anybody else I know. And he is also, to some degree, there was a time when he just kind of like left me in the dust in a scooter. We were going to go somewhere together. We did laundry together. And we have actually survived before in the nights together. We met up one time when I was at a park, and it's just like, it would be better to be with somebody than not with somebody. And it just worked out that way. But he has also told me, like, I'm scared I'm gonna die. Like, I don't think, like, he's at a level of addiction that's just, what it is, he would grow up so fast if his parents weren't around. His parents were gonna make sure he ain't never homeless. He lost his apartment during this time I've known him. And it's just, so if he got to stand on his own feet, I bet you he would probably straighten up. Probably would. My guess is, he will overdose. His parents will enable him to get right through the line where he doesn't have enough responsibility to change. And that's probably what will happen. I've always thought that. It's so sad.
The only way I can quickly transition from that experience is to say any kind of addiction is bad. The next experience I have, or a relationship I would talk about, would be one where the parent, or one that used to be there, had an addiction problem. And it's just kind of like, you have to take what the world throws at you. And when you're homeless, you have to widen your horizon for what your ability of tolerance is all the time. You're often choosing between the worst two options, and it hurts all the time.
Not Amanda Hayes, not her. Amanda Hayes was pretty much a goal level of like, you were my friend then, and I want to be as, I give her space, and I think that she'll be there for me in the future, and I'm trying to keep her out of it. When I was in Winston-Salem, sleeping at my high school, I didn't go to Amanda. I only went to Amanda when I had to, because cops were patting their handcuffs, saying, isn't there anybody you can call? There wasn't anybody I could call. I didn't want Amanda to see me like that. she got that. Her mom did a horrible job.
Wanting and trying to maintain the relationship you have with a best friend for over half your life is one thing, and then being homeless throws you into an overdrive version of the expected, the unexpected. Remember, I'm often a guest anywhere I go, and sometimes you just kind of have to follow your heart on the fly, and sometimes it will be excruciatingly difficult emotionally and physically. You could be exhausted of how much I've walked or how much I've worked or how much I've carried, and then you have to deal with the toll that other people in a homeless crisis have to also survive. You literally have to invent the plan C or D, E, or F. You have to really come up with whatever is going to help people get through things, and you have to make the right call. You better not make the wrong mistake a single time, because the consequences can be severe sometimes. When the family's not there, you are the family now, and you just met someone less than 24 hours ago.
So I have a relationship with somebody that I spent January 6th with, know this person a good while, do like the person a whole lot, and he has a relationship. There's a 22-year-old staying with him, and it was the day that I had that hot summer day, very exhausted, and had to take the 22-year-old to go see his father. It was at a hotel. We got to the hotel, father wasn't there. The kid was very, very, very sad. He's autistic, slow, developmental needs. We didn't have, I had the phone charger and we had Gatorade. I maxed out my Snap. It was very exhausting, and it was just kind of like, if I could take my dad or could take a train to see the dad that I used to have before it became so awful, it would be, of course I would have gone. So I understood that. It was just a hard, oh, here I am, I'm homeless, and I'm bringing you your much younger son. But I just met this kid yesterday. I don't know who he is. Well, the thing about that is, like,
The thing about that is a true measure of a man. I had nothing to gain and more things to risk or lose when an autistic person, very young and homeless, practically begs me. My father demands that I get to him. I need to get to him. It's an emergency. And I realize I really do have to take him because he needs his dad. That is just plain and simple. We get there, the father of this child has already left. He abandoned the homeless son he already had. That was the situation. And writing about this experience this summer was one time that it actually affected another relationship. The person that has mattered most in my father's career of all time, Barbara Moore at the Chadsworth Gallery, read this with recognition and respect for what I did. She would later decide to end our relationship or, go away virtually. I still think that she left with a smile, and I think that she left with hope for the family, if not my dad's career, from that experience. One thing that I don't think I described earlier this summer on Facebook, but I want to make sure is clearly known, the reason I was doing this and not the person that I went to go see and be a guest at, that person was at work. That person used to be homeless, and he was doing the right thing by being at work. I was there being a guest, hopefully having a rest day, but this 22-year-old had pretty much a family emergency. I thought he was going to get rescued from being homeless or something. And I don't have no regrets over what I did, although it was extremely exhausting, mentally, emotionally, physically.
I started working with the older one that I knew longer. He helped me get a job. Incredibly great thing to do. And this is really a bizarre situation and something I've never disclosed yet. When I started working at the job, at a kitchen and bath design firm, my boss was parents were divorced. He was gay, had not been homeless, had traveled the world, very affluent, and was in that. Yeah, it's kind of like a red flag. You could be that guy. His mother was there, and my determination of should I accept this job, is this job going to be something I could be successful in? Really, for me, the big line was, is this woman, she's old, but is she really lucid enough? Is she still got an influence over him? It doesn't seem like it would be something that there's not a complete, because what they did is they invited me to live in that office, stay there temporarily, and they lived or worked what I did 24 hours a day. It became a power vacuum.
September at large was such a wild and crazy month of so many starts and stops. And when I look at my camera roll, I cannot believe it. But the way this job started was a casual night at a cookout at who was going to be my boss's place, and he basically talked to me to kind of find out I was on my own and how I went homeless, that I was a hard worker, and I come in for one day to write a letter to answer a request for a proposal, and I'm thrown kind of like right back a decade ago into the kind of work I was doing in Raleigh. It was kind of like, well, this feels familiar. I know what I'm doing. It's just extremely different from like 2 days ago when I'm helping the autistic kid and just surviving in Denver. I am awarded the position right away because I just do an excellent job getting along with everyone and doing a really knockout job, as I usually do with my writing skills. As soon as that's over, I'm kind of in this position where, fortunately, this really happened.
And my mother actually somehow recognized that I posted some things about my safety without really saying that I felt unsafe. She got on that right away. She gave me some, so it was so touchy. I was already in a good wanting to forgive and get close with my mother place.
Hate to be a bastion of reality, but just remember, this is just one moment. My mother has been completely fine with me being homeless for over a year. She just had a moment of clarity and went right back to being herself.
Then she would later, just a few weeks later, tell me, you laugh at me for still being homeless on Thanksgiving. It was just kind of like a bizarre thing where she cared a little bit. She gave me phone numbers to some resources, and I called them, and I did try. It was the closest, sweetest thing that's happened with me and my mother in a very long time.
There's nothing I can do to kind of quickly, in a nutshell, explain to someone completely unfamiliar with being on the precipice of physical violence, but I could feel all the signs. I echoed those through in the right language. My mother picked it up, and it was something that gave me hope that maybe she could come to be a better person or something. I did call the resources she gave me for crisis centers. I didn't meet the criteria, and I quickly moved on, changing my entire world. Again, leaving the job, which, you have to remember, it feels good, sounds good, looks good to have a job when you're homeless. This was a job that was just not in a safe environment. Somebody had too much control and was a little bit of a maniac. I got out right before things got bad. They never paid me for the other 2 days that I worked. It was a very bad situation. September and October were incredibly, just swinging from the trapeze, one branch to another. Within 5 days of reacquiring my documents to work because they had been stolen, and that employer had not been completely demanding of them, and they didn't pay me either. I accepted full-time employment within 5 days, and then that never worked out. It's not my fault, and I've been continuing to look for work ever since.
Another one that goes way back to first grade, Tosh. Probably saw my favorite ladies of the 80s video or something like that. One of those ones at the homeless shelter that were really good, were really touching, really emotional, really strong. Tasha was homeless herself once, and she sent me $60, which is a huge amount of money coming out of the blue. We had talked just that morning for a little bit. Later on, a couple months, 3-4 months later, I was in a real bind, and I was like, Tasha, can you help me? And just $10. And given a plan, winding it and everything. Tasha was unable to, and immediately started complaining about the father of her kids and how much of a dirtbag he was. And I was just like, oh, okay. That was very illuminating and interesting. People at Westward High School that I haven't mentioned yet, Allison Millsaps Eckley, and I, very career track oriented, very much the same. We hung out in Raleigh a couple times. She was at one point, 2011, 12, trying to tell me how she got her job at a PR firm. I thought that we were going to be a more united front this time around. She did kind of come in. It's like, how did you end up homeless? And I asked her for there was a time in summer I needed transportation money, literally to get to a job. She couldn't do it. I asked her more recently for the two people that have helped me the most recently. One of them moved to California. It was neighbors. I knew the one I'll probably go back to his house right from his. Stayed there 2 nights ago. He needs AstroTurf replaced, and I told him about it in his backyard because he's got 2 dogs, and he loves. He's someone that his parents are together. He's gay. He has experienced loss through his partner died recently, about a year ago, and he has, he's overall a really sweet person. He sees that I am too, the pain that I'm enduring, and I've been with him on Thanksgiving, and we met in August and him and all until September. He's where I went when my safety was threatened.
Here's what I learned from this one, or just kind of remember really well, try not to forget. I may have been Allison's good friend at the high school newspaper team, and we might have been good buddies as young college grads working our first jobs in Raleigh, but a lot of years had gone by. I think she was really only interested in the novelty in what had gone wrong. See, even though I was pretty much on par with her socially and, career track oriented back in the day, I have fallen so low to her, she can't fathom a reasonable way. The whole concept of coming across the country for COVID, for promotion 2 weeks before the shutdown, the COVID economy itself, juggling me through a myriad of jobs and job changes that I never really felt like I had a role in, making the decision of. Allison just really cannot see, no matter how hard I tried, to convince her to do the right thing, to help another person who helped me in a way that was very inexpensive and would make a huge difference. For Allison, this is not something she will recognize. And I remember a situation when my brother in high school had a friend who was, I would say, destitute, maybe being neglected and just doing some things that we didn't find very orthodox, but it was kind of like, well, this is how he's getting by. Maybe it would be like water not at his house, which turned out to be the situation with my dad in 2023. That had nothing to do with my performance as a person, an adult, or being, I was coming to him for help. He decided to leave me in a home with no water. Therefore, I left to find better conditions back in Denver eventually. But for Allison, she's never been able to relate. She has no ability to relate to anything that I have remotely gone through since you last saw me when I became bipolar in 2012. There's nothing that I can do in this relationship to change Allison's mind except write a book. I bet you can imagine, for me, Allison represented that time of high school and the possibility of what could happen after college when we're young professionals, and I really did long to return to that sort of sense of newness, energy, and then with her new kids, it's just like, she's kind of that young mom with that generation growing that's a lot of change and different for me. I had hoped that Allison would be able to help primarily through just kind of raising awareness, telling other people that we know from West Forsyth High School, and maybe helping, with her PR skills, maybe, just an overall GoFundMe tips, or just be an ally there without having to do a whole lot. I did just ask her for AstroTurf, just a small piece of it to help someone else. She was unable. You have to remember, Allison is just in a different place in life. It's really unusually awkward that she is in Valentine, the same area of Charlotte I was living and trying to work in right after graduation from college, during the Great Recession. It was just kind of like, if I was to move to Charlotte with a new husband and a different, set of circumstances, she'd probably go to lunch with me. But now that I'm homeless, it's just too much for her to wrap around rationally. I must be crazy. It must be my fault. She doesn't know anybody else that was so successful and now is homeless and striving to survive. It doesn't make sense to her. Allison doesn't really have the bandwidth to even understand that when she was getting married or engaged, married, and having kids, I was watching my father in the hospital recover from heart attacks and heart surgery, running his online art campaigns and a political campaign, being made homeless, and also being, trusted to do those things for him and run his business so that I could get promoted and go in faith to go to Colorado, never knowing there would be a pandemic. None of that will ever make sense to Allison because too much time has went by over a decade. Her life has been going in one direction and mine has been going in the other. She also is a gay and hasn't been homeless before. Her likelihood of actually understanding anything or coming on board is very slim. That being said, she could be vital. Any help I can get, any new help, any new connections is extremely important. Even if it's an old connection, becoming new and again. Allison can be a game changer in a way if it's possible. So I must try. Here's exactly why I believe that's so important, why I try with Allison some more. One, I can never rebuild that equity of the 2-3 years we had in high school together while I'm homeless with someone else similar to Allison. Allison is important to me. I do miss her personally. I really, really do. Second of all, she is exactly the demographic of the university I graduated from. They're not able to understand. In fact, nobody really was able to give me a human connection. Decisions were just being made. I think it was assumed I was there to cause some sort of January 6th type 2 sort of protest when I was absolutely always against the event. The only person who really got it, that I was there for a true need of Samaritan help, was the student health center's doctor who saw me on the Samaritan Act. She was the only one on campus. The student receptionist at the health center was like, "You need to get away from here. You're too old." I was calm, sober, polite, ready for help, receiving some first aid. People like Allison are the people that have to hear that story, and it has to resonate with them for my long-term plans and growth and just security at large for the rest of my life. I've got to be able to continue to cooperate, communicate, and collaborate with people like Allison. So I'm going to. Since this may be the only time I may ever have Allison's attention again, while it counts before I die of chronic homelessness, Allison, one thing that is essential for me in multiple ways for just life support, somewhere warm to go 24/7 is a co-working office space. I can get my mail there. That eliminates trips down to the homeless shelter where it's dangerous and there's problems getting mail. This would allow me to have a creative space, a quiet place, a place alone to think, to write, to do some business consulting, do a number of things that I need for my mental health and clarity, and to grow while I also am working and saving up for a place to live. This place is a lot less expensive than a whole room to rent with a security deposit, everything. It's a stepping stone and something I need, like a gym membership to a recreation center. Those are two things that would be huge positive, that would change my day to day and help me out in a lot. This exact same message is also for Amanda Leanberg. We were on the newspaper staff together too. You guys have to kind of remember, when I am in the homeless shelter, I have to be tough among 70% of its population, which are convicts. And then I also have to be able, as much as I can, to have moments like this. I was in the apartment of a condo, rather, of an 85-year-old man. And then I stayed there the night, and I decided, it's time for me to start making sweet tea again. I need to make it for people I love, which is the people that saved me. With that in mind, I can't explain how bad I just wanted to go home the day I wrecked my bicycle and my head fell on these rocks. But you also have to remember, as that pounding pain is flooding through my head, I'm also very aware that my family absolutely doesn't care that I don't have a home, and I haven't had a home in over 500 days. I also have to be still young, not tired, ready for an adventure, curious and interested about anyone else I might be suddenly meeting because I need a place to stay. And sometimes, all the time, that might mean, being in the mood for romance. If I get carried away and taxed on my mind and my heart, I just have to accept what I cannot change, what I will want to. I have to believe in my dreams, and I have to put it in a place that's safe enough for me to continue to keep moving onward 24/7 all of the time. This was what my phone looked like in August, and I remember I was kidnapped in March. I survived that and walked back to West Virginia just to leave it, and then got a phone in Colorado when my tax return finally arrived and allowed me to do so. If this phone goes down, it better go down after I get a new one, which has to happen after I go to work enough times so that I can afford one and still get a home, just to get back what I already lost. I can never be too caught up in my surroundings if I'm stepping over another homeless person asleep on the ground, which I was in that picture. And never forget, I've already walked 73.6 miles just this month and a whole bunch of other months before it. Nobody really understands what it's like to tell the doctor, I can't get my flu shot and my COVID shot because I have to carry 75 pounds to wherever it is I find where to sleep tonight. Winter, rain, snow, shine, 0 degrees, below zero, it doesn't matter. Remember, everybody thinks you're lazy and you're never going home. I haven't been home since September 8th, 2022. I must keep going. Nobody except other homeless people like you are really able to understand no one else cares what you just survived. And remember, I have like less than $3 of food stamps till the 6th, and it's January 24th. Isn't there anyone you can call? Is what I remember the sheriff's deputies for Forsyth County saying when I slept outside West Forsyth. There sure isn't. So if something like this happens, you better put away the flashbacks of getting kidnapped, and you better have a plan to get your cell phone back that he also stole. There sure aren't any teddy bears at the homeless shelter. There's about 500 smelly, stinking, snoring, angry men, and you better put your head on the side of the ladder just to protect yourself while you're sleeping. I still don't really have any guarantee of a safe, consistent place to go at night when I'm not working that is close to the employer, but it's just kind of a chicken and egg problem. So I'm right here at Chipotle. Right there is Chipotle. That window, that's Chipotle. And they said come in today at 4. They texted me at 10:55 a.m. and said come in today's the day. How about 4 to 7? And I was like, I'll be there. I got here. This is my own folder I brought with my stuff in it. And they're like, oh yeah, our cashiers, the person texting the person who offered me the job last week is like, oh yeah, we didn't tell our cashiers that you were coming in. And I'm just like, well, I mean, you told me to come in, so, let's get started. It's not magic, it's Walgreens. Guess who called? I'm gonna stop it here, but just imagine a lot of people have called. I've went to a lot of interviews. I'm still relocating different parts all over the city because I have to. It's winter. I've got to stay wherever I can find that's the best place for that time. My interview on Friday is for a wheelchair attendant at the airport. I think it would be a rewarding position, but it is far away from everything. Another great job I'd like to have is trash man because I have to also be able to still do this to accomplish my goals. Maybe it could be in another country. I'm getting some attention from Canada and Africa, and it's, I don't know how to say, very inspiring and very touching. The people that never knew me, they're just now finding out about my story of surviving homelessness for 440 days and homelessness for the second time. It's the energy that keeps me going. So next, I'm going to transition and talk about Rhonda Riggs. Rhonda Riggs was the person who I was staying with while my mother was being very pregnant in the last days, and she was the one that drove me to the hospital to meet my brother. This is such a huge relationship in the moment of 1990, and I did see Rhonda while I was in college waiting tables. It was a 20-year check-in in a sense. Trying to reach out to Rhonda while homeless has become, it was a frustrating, almost, I kind of figured it would be this way with my father's 3 heart attacks, quadruple open heart bypass surgery, obsession with a 7-year-old boy, my mother going around the world in the 2010s, and coming back with severe memory loss. Rhonda really couldn't process all of those things that I had nothing to do with. All she could see was that I was homeless, upset, dire, in need of things. Again, her brain doesn't really register where's that little boy, that family that I last saw in the early 90s. So much has gone by, and I wasn't the only one doing things. Mostly, I feel it was my family, my parents, making a negative impact on, vitality now. And Rhonda doesn't understand that. She probably wouldn't do the same things to her kids, and it just doesn't compute. Next, though, is a person that was a very big part of my family's initial success before I was born, and is in a great place to be one of the people that can be one of those outlier miracle people for me, but I have to get her attention in the right way, and she does know my dad, or she did 30, almost 40 years ago. I think she told me that she knew my mom the best, and my dad would have likely been more shy at the time. What we have to kind of know is in the 1980s, before I was born, Frank Levering and Wanda Urbanska wrote a book called Moving to a Small Town about the benefits of moving a new family or just anyone really wanting to start fresh in the 1980s to a place like Mount Airy, North Carolina. And my parents were the young newlyweds, it coupled. Somewhere along the way, at some point in the 1980s, this was happening, and there was nothing wrong with that. And you don't have to be homeless and have all the family pictures while you're homeless to know that there's nothing wrong with that. You have to kind of celebrate the time that was forever beautiful when your parents were in love and when they did believe in their dreams. The problem is, well, there's a few. The major one is my parents stopped believing in each other. The second problem is nobody is really able to have a predisposition to this kind of content from a homeless man who's trying to save his life and lead his family out of so much darkness. It's essential that someone like Wanda Urbanska, if I could convince her, I could probably convince Elon University, essentially that what's right doesn't change. In this picture, my mom believed she might be thin again. In this picture, it's one of the only ones of all four of us, one of the only memories I alone have, Drew doesn't have it, of my grandfather. We just grew up, and the Griffin family loved us anyway through all sorts of changes. My mom and dad became my mom and Steve. And the thing is, I love Steve. He had a birthday this week. I hope it was a good one. I asked him for a phone because this one is really on its last leg. And if it goes down, we'll never see Drew's graduation, not with my mom, but with Jerry. And I love Jerry too. I miss her greatly, and I always will. There's nothing wrong with the fact me and Drew love Steve and Jerry. Another problem is none of this was real. This Once Upon a Time painting is of a librarian that agreed to have her age doubled. And the new millennium dragged on with new millennium problems. When I was raped, my rapist worked right next to that place. It was his first job, and that happened. The incident with me happened in 2022 in Denver. It just happens that that's the connection, and that painting has always changed. My dad can't give that painting to his parents. He can also not even turn on the water where he's leaving me to stay in 2023. And remember, in 2016, 8 years ago, my father made me homeless the first time, and this was his acceptable, I guess to him, way of showing me hospitality after I had already survived without a home again for like 6 months. In fact, there's going to be a companion video linked in the description already on YouTube and available called "The Future Only Belongs to Those Who Believe in All of Their Dreams," especially their children. There's not any paintings of the head-on collision my mother got into and survived, and there's none of the wreck I had either. There is a picture of her newest husband in Washington, D.C. The last time I saw them was in 2020, right before COVID started, and I never got trained for the job I worked 1 year and 1 day for. As much as I'd like to know my stepbrother and stepsisters in 2 different continents, I'd like to survive and actually have a home again. And I certainly can't stop thinking about what my father's up to with a 7-year-old somewhere in West Virginia. And it truly is something I cannot accept. Starving to death in the world right in front of me. It just seems really crazy that the family that used to grace magazine covers and sell prints now can't really do anything other than what I'm doing, and I'm doing all that I can all of the time. But then again, I sort of always have been doing that. Maybe one day I'll get to go home.